American media loves a good panic. One weird video becomes a national emergency. One bug bite? Suddenly, it's the end of days. In this video, you'll see 101 times US news blew things way out of proportion, from exploding candy to killer microwaves. Some of it was funny. Some of it caused real damage. All of it? Wild. 1. In 1938, a radio broadcast of War of the Worlds caused mass panic across the US, with listeners thinking aliens had actually invaded. Newspapers later exaggerated the chaos even more, claiming nationwide hysteria. In reality, a few confused listeners and some prank calls. Not quite the alien apocalypse headlines promised. 2. During the 2014 Ebola outbreak, US media treated the virus like it was seconds away from becoming a coast-to-coast catastrophe. Endless panic-filled segments aired despite only a handful of cases in the entire country. One guy sneezed on a subway, and people practically evacuated the train. 3. In the 1990s, killer bees were all over the news, portrayed as an unstoppable plague heading north from South America. Entire segments were dedicated to warning Americans about deadly bee swarms. Spoiler alert, the bees showed up, but the body count didn't. 4. Remember the Y2K scare? The media convinced millions that computers would crash, planes would fall from the sky, and society would collapse at midnight. People stockpiled canned food and withdrew cash. What actually happened? Almost nothing, except some programmers got big overtime checks. 5. In 2004, Janet Jackson's Super Bowl wardrobe malfunction lasted half a second. But the media reaction? Full-blown moral crisis. Congressional hearings followed, and the FCC cracked down on broadcasts like it was the end of decency itself. 6. When murder hornets made headlines in 2020, they were framed as a lethal threat to humans. News outlets ran ominous graphics and horror movie music. In reality, these hornets were dangerous to bees, not people, and only a few were ever found in the US. 7. In 2016, a scary clown panic spread through American neighborhoods, thanks to viral videos and 24/7 news coverage. Police departments got involved, schools went on alert, and Halloween was nearly canceled in some towns, all over a few pranksters in clown suits. 8. The 1975 release of the movie Jaws led to a media-fueled shark hysteria. News reports suddenly acted like sharks were lurking off every beach. Beach attendance dropped, and shark hunting skyrocketed. Meanwhile, actual shark attacks remained extremely rare. 9. In 2006, the bird flu dominated headlines with apocalyptic predictions. Cable news ran simulations of mass outbreaks and entire cities under quarantine. Total US fatalities? 0. But hand sanitizer sales definitely soared. 10. When TikTok trends started gaining traction, the media often exaggerated them into national threats. Take the Benadryl challenge, for instance. One tragic case was real, but networks made it sound like teens across the nation were overdosing daily. Sometimes the coverage caused more harm than the trends themselves. 11. The swine flu outbreak in 2009 triggered a media frenzy, with headlines warning of a global catastrophe. While the virus was serious, coverage often outpaced the facts, especially when it came to panic about vaccines. In the end, the mortality rate was lower than seasonal flu in some years, but you'd never guess that from the news. 12. In the 1980s, satanic panic swept the nation thanks to media reports claiming devil-worshipping cults were infiltrating schools, daycares, and small towns. Talk shows ran wild with the theme. Years later, most of the accusations turned out to be baseless, and some led to wrongful convictions. 13. In 2013, the Slender Man myth went viral, and media outlets quickly turned it into a real-world menace. Despite being pure internet fiction, news reports gave the character a dark mystique, so much so that some viewers believed he was genuinely haunting their kids' dreams. 14. In 2017, the Tide Pod Challenge caught the media's attention. News anchors dramatically warned of a youth epidemic of detergent-eating teens. While a few kids did actually attempt it, the media attention likely made it worse. turning it from a fringe internet joke into a full-blown phenomenon. 15. In 2010, volcanic ash from Iceland's Eyjafjallajökull eruption grounded flights and sparked media chaos. U.S. news ran dramatic footage of European skies and suggested a transatlantic travel shutdown. Most Americans didn't realize it barely affected the U.S. at all, unless your vacation happened to be in Paris. 16. During the early 2000s, media outlets latched onto the idea that video games like Grand Theft Auto were turning kids into criminals. Segments warned parents their children were learning how to carjack and shoot. Studies later showed no causal link, but the fear had already spread like wildfire. 17. Every time gas prices spike, the media acts like the apocalypse is coming. Endless footage of pumps, charts, and angry customers dominate the screen. But when prices drop, crickets. Apparently, good news doesn't get ratings. 18. In 2015, when Zika virus made headlines, the media painted a picture of a mosquito-borne Armageddon heading straight for the U.S. Entire states were on edge, even though actual U.S. outbreaks were extremely limited. Sales of citronella candles, though, sky high. 19. After every major snowstorm, media networks rolled out dramatic names like Snowmageddon and Snowpocalypse. Weather reporters are shown braving the flurries like it's the day after tomorrow. Meanwhile, some locals are still grilling in the backyard. 20. In 2006, a bizarre internet rumor claimed that bananas were infected with flesh-eating bacteria. Media ran the story without verifying it, creating a brief but intense wave of banana paranoia. Grocery sales dipped, and CDC had to publicly debunk the myth. 21. When Pokémon Go launched in 2016, news outlets warned of mass accidents, distracted drivers, and players walking off cliffs. Most people were just catching Pikachu in the park, but the coverage made it sound like society was collapsing into a pixelated nightmare. 22. After a 2011 CDC blog post humorously suggested preparing for a zombie apocalypse as a way to promote emergency preparedness, some media outlets reported it as a real government warning. Headlines blurred the line between satire and emergency broadcast. 23. In the 1990s, Beanie Babies were portrayed as serious investments. Media hyped stories of toys selling for thousands. The result? Mass hysteria, long lines, and even thefts over plush animals. Today, most of those valuable toys are worth less than a cup of coffee. 24. In 2014, the ALS Ice Bucket Challenge took over social media, and the news couldn't get enough. Segments focused more on celebrities dumping water than the actual disease. While the campaign did raise awareness, coverage often skipped the whole point. 25. After the release of the Blair Witch Project, the media helped spread the idea that the found footage horror film might be real. Despite disclaimers, many viewers were convinced by the shaky cam and missing person posters, thanks in part to breathless media speculation. 26. In the early 2000s, the media warned of a looming superbug apocalypse, bacteria resistant to all antibiotics. While antibiotic resistance is real, the coverage made it seem like the next plague was already knocking on every hospital door. Fear sold papers but didn't quite match reality. 27. The 2012 Mayan calendar Apocalypse got an absurd amount of airtime. Documentaries, countdown specials, and news debates all asked, what if the world really ends? Spoiler, we're still here. But December 21, 2012 sure made for some dramatic graphics and survival kit ads. 28. In 2003, when SARS emerged, US media ran it as if every flight carried a death sentence. Despite the fact that SARS never took hold widely in the US, coverage was relentless. Airports added temperature checks, while most Americans never got within a mile of the virus. 29. In 2008, the peanut butter recall due to salmonella contamination sparked massive media warnings. Grocery store shelves were cleared, and parents panicked. But most brands were unaffected, and the risk was highly limited. Yet, talk shows made it sound like PB&J had become a deadly snack. 30. The clown panic made a comeback in 2016, when people in clown costumes were reportedly lurking near schools and woods. The media took isolated incidents and turned them into a national fear fest. Sales of clown costumes dropped, and real clowns had to issue public statements. 31. In 2015, shark attacks dominated summer headlines, making it seem like Jaws had returned. But actual shark attack numbers were average that year. The only thing that had increased? Camera crews swarming the beaches. 32. In 2007, the Boston bomb scare happened when LED signs promoting a Cartoon Network show were mistaken for explosive devices. The media frenzy shut down parts of the city and cost the network millions. The signs? Just pixelated characters flipping the bird. 33. The face on Mars image from a 1976 NASA photo became a media sensation. Entire specials speculated about ancient Martian civilizations. Later, better quality images showed it was just a rocky hill. But try telling that to the History Channel. 34. In 2019, TikTok videos warning about the Momo Challenge, a supposedly deadly internet game, went viral. News stations warned parents of a demonic figure whispering suicidal instructions to kids. Authorities later confirmed it was all a hoax, fueled by pure media hysteria. 35. The bird flu resurfaced in media panic mode in 2013. Despite affecting mostly poultry farms in Asia, U.S. networks broadcast daily updates as if backyard chickens in Ohio were next. Meanwhile, public health experts begged them to tone it down. 36. In the mid-90s, reports of black helicopters and UN troops sneaking across American skies were taken seriously by some outlets. Conspiracy-driven segments stoked fears of global government takeovers. The helicopters? Routine military drills. 37. In the early 2010s, some media ran with the idea that certain energy drinks were causing heart attacks in teens. Headlines screamed danger over every can of caffeine. Actual studies showed moderate risks, but not nearly what the coverage made it out to be. It did wonders for coffee sales, though. 38. The killer clown hysteria hit some towns so hard that police had to issue public statements and arrest pranksters. The media fed the flames, treating each clown sighting like a serial killer manhunt. In reality, most were just bored teens in makeup. 39. When mad cow disease made headlines in the early 2000s, beef sales plummeted after 24/7 coverage warned of brain-destroying parasites. The number of U.S. cases? 2. But media fear served better than a steak dinner. 40. After The Matrix hit theaters, some outlets claimed it had inspired a wave of delusional simulation believers. They aired interviews with people claiming to live in a computer-generated world. Turns out, the only thing spreading was media-induced existential crisis. 41. When hoverboards first hit the market in 2015, reports of them catching fire dominated the news. While a few incidents were real, the media made it sound like every hallway in America was a ticking time bomb. Suddenly, gliding through the mall felt like walking through a minefield. 42. When 3D printing became popular, media outlets jumped to worst-case scenarios: untraceable guns, homemade bombs, even cloned body parts. The coverage focused so much on fear, it barely acknowledged the tech's positive potential, like custom prosthetics or low-cost housing solutions. 43. When Ebola resurfaced in 2018 in the Congo, some U.S. outlets jumped back into full panic mode, despite 0 domestic cases. Cable news treated it like a Hollywood sequel, Ebola 2: The Return. Meanwhile, global health officials were managing it quietly and effectively. 44. In the 1980s, crack cocaine was portrayed as the single greatest threat to American society. Media images often focused on poor urban communities, fueling racial stereotypes and public fear. Later studies showed the crisis was real, but the panic-driven coverage did more harm than help. 45. When bird scooters took over cities in the late 2010s, news outlets ran stories suggesting they were a public safety disaster. Segments showed dramatic wipeouts and interviews with angry pedestrians. Reality? Most riders were just commuting, and occasionally crashing into trash cans. 46. Remember Africanized killer bees? Media warned they'd sweep across the US in a deadly wave. They did migrate north, but the media forgot to mention they mostly replaced existing bees and stung about as often. Turns out, sensational headlines sting harder. 47. In 2009, the Balloon Boy saga gripped America after reports that a child was floating across Colorado in a runaway balloon. News helicopters chased it for miles. Hours of breaking coverage. And the kid was hiding in the attic the whole time. Oops. 48. The flesh-eating bacteria scare of 2012 had Americans terrified of going near water. News anchors described beach trips as Russian roulette. In truth, the bacteria exists, but actual infections are extremely rare and usually linked to open wounds and warm Gulf waters. 49. In the 70s, media stories of exploding pop rocks and soda combos convinced parents the candy was dangerous. One rumor claimed a kid's stomach exploded after eating them. It didn't happen, but that didn't stop the panic or the drop in sales. 50. In 2013, when a Russian meteor exploded over Chelyabinsk, media outlets speculated wildly about whether Earth was under threat. Segments questioned NASA's ability to stop incoming space rocks. Meanwhile, NASA calmly reminded everyone, yeah, we can't. 51. Knockout game. Reports in 2013 claimed teens were targeting random strangers for fun. News cycles treated it like a national epidemic. But investigations revealed most incidents were isolated and often unrelated. The coverage did more to spread fear than facts. 52. In 2007, toy recalls involving lead paint from China were a serious issue. But some media outlets ran so hard with it, parents thought every toy might be lethal. Viewers began tossing out entire playrooms based on vague warnings. 53. The vaccines cause autism. Narrative wasn't just a fringe theory. It got serious airtime in the early 2000s. Despite scientific consensus disproving it, major media gave it both sides coverage, which helped the myth gain dangerous momentum. 54. In 2010, Google's experimental self-driving car made headlines, mostly about fears of robotic death traps. Anchors joked about cars going rogue and driving into buildings. Fast forward a decade, and autonomous vehicles are becoming normal. Hype, reality. 55. Every solar eclipse seems to come with a wave of fear-mongering. Don't look up. Wear hazmat-grade glasses. Some reports make it sound like staring at the sun for a millisecond will leave you blind forever. Yes, eye safety matters, but maybe skip the horror music next time. 56. When the Ice Bucket Challenge went viral in 2014, some media turned it into a bizarre public health concern. Segments speculated about people catching pneumonia from cold water. While the awareness campaign raised millions for ALS, certain anchors treated it like a risky stunt show. 57. In 1999, fears around Pokémon gave rise to media speculation that the franchise was causing seizures, addiction, and even demonic influence. One Japanese TV episode did cause a real incident due to flashing lights, but US coverage exaggerated it into a full-blown moral panic. 58. The 2005 bird flu panic included media predictions of mass deaths, martial law, and vaccine riots. Anchors used pandemic graphics and wartime metaphors. The reality? The virus never took hold in the US, but the fear definitely did. 59. In 2000, when genetically modified foods hit shelves, some media outlets suggested they might mutate human DNA or cause bizarre allergies. Terms like Frankenfood took over headlines, scaring off consumers, despite overwhelming evidence showing GMOs are safe. 60. In 2016, the Blue Whale Challenge was reported as a secret online cult convincing teens to commit suicide. News networks treated it like a coordinated global operation. But digital forensics later showed it was mostly a viral hoax inflated by media repetition. 61. When Russia launched Sputnik in 1957, US media lost its mind. Headlines predicted imminent nuclear strikes from space, mind control satellites, and America falling behind forever. Within a year, the US launched its own satellite, but the fear had already shaped an entire generation. 62. In the early 1990s, No Fear t-shirts were blamed by media pundits for promoting youth rebellion and aggression. Some schools banned them. Apparently, wearing a shirt that said, "Second place is the first loser," was a sign of moral collapse. 63. In 2019, when deepfakes started circulating, the media predicted the end of truth itself. Reports warned that elections would be rigged by fake videos and that no footage could ever be trusted again. While concerns are valid, the doom levels were cranked to max. 64. When MySpace launched, media warnings about online predators were everywhere. Some segments made it sound like logging in was the same as inviting danger into your home. Parents panicked. Ironically, most kids were just using it to post emo song lyrics and glittery GIFs. 65. In 2010, Google Glass was introduced, and some news outlets claimed it could secretly record everyone around you. Terms like surveillance glasses dominated. While privacy concerns were valid, most glass users just got mocked in public and called glass holes. 66. The fidget spinner epidemic of 2017 saw media outlets warn that classrooms were turning into chaotic playgrounds. Some schools even banned them. Turns out, they were just spinning toys, not psychological time bombs. 67. In 2004, the introduction of RFID chips in passports and cards triggered media claims that your identity could be stolen from across the street. Some outlets pushed conspiracy theories about government tracking. Reality? Most RFID scans need to be inches away and easily blocked. 68. In the 1980s, media whipped up panic over Dungeons & Dragons, suggesting it was linked to Satanism and teen suicide. Talk shows featured cult experts, and game manuals were treated like forbidden grimoires. Today, D&D is a mainstream hobby and a Netflix plotline. 69. When smart speakers like Alexa and Google Home became popular, the media ran stories about them secretly recording everything. Some anchors even unplugged theirs live on air. While companies do collect data, the idea that Alexa is listening 24/7 for blackmail material was a stretch. 70. In the 1990s, TV segments warned that Beavis and Butthead were causing a new generation of arsonists. After one tragic fire, the show was blamed without evidence. Some stations pulled it entirely. The real cause? A lighter and zero supervision. 71. When AI-generated art first hit the scene, some media reports warned it would kill all creative jobs within a year. Headlines claimed artists, designers, and even musicians were obsolete. The tools were powerful, but the apocalypse didn't quite arrive on schedule. 72. In 2003, SARS coverage reached fever pitch in the US, despite only a handful of suspected cases nationwide. Media used terms like global contagion and airborne killer. Meanwhile, actual transmission in the US was almost non-existent, and experts were drowned out by dramatic music and maps. 73. In the 1980s, reports of children being hypnotized through Saturday morning cartoons made waves. Parents were told certain shows had subliminal satanic messages. In reality, the most dangerous thing on TV was probably the sugar-packed cereal commercials. 74. When TikTok exploded in popularity, US media often portrayed it as a Chinese spying tool, suggesting that every dance video was somehow feeding into a surveillance database. The platform does collect data, but so do dozens of American apps with far less fanfare. 75. In the 1990s, toxic mold became the media's favorite health horror story. One report of a moldy home led to nationwide panic, with families tearing out walls and ceilings. Later studies found that most mold cases weren't remotely dangerous, but the damage was already done. 76. The solar flare scare of 2012 had cable news predicting the end of GPS, electricity, and the internet as we knew it. A single NASA report about a theoretical risk snowballed into talk of tech Armageddon. The flare passed. Nothing happened. But ratings soared. 77. When ChatGPT launched, some outlets immediately warned that students would never write another essay again. Others declared it a cheating machine or a truth killer. Meanwhile, students just started asking it to help with homework, and sometimes got really weird answers. 78. The Black Cat Halloween warning gets recycled almost every year. News segments warn pet owners not to let black cats outside because of ritual sacrifice. There's little evidence of actual harm, but the myth lives on, and shelters still pause adoptions each October. 79. In 2015, self-balancing hoverboards were in the spotlight again, this time for fires and explosions. One viral video turned into a media firestorm, with predictions that the tech would be banned nationwide. Some models were faulty, yes, but most were just clunky, overpriced toys. 80. In the early 2000s, media outlets began speculating that texting would destroy language. They cited acronyms like LOL and BRB as signs of linguistic collapse. Today, we're still reading, writing, and talking, just with a few more emojis. 81. The climate lockdown theory got a surprising amount of airtime in some corners of the media. Segments suggested that environmental policies would lead to forced home quarantines and meat bans. None of it was based on actual legislation, but it sure filled a few time slots. 82. When Pokemon Go came out, some reports claimed people were using it to commit crimes, like luring players into dark alleys for robberies. A few incidents did occur, but the overwhelming majority of users were just walking into traffic or fountains. 83. In 1999, the Cassini spacecraft was feared to cause a nuclear disaster during its flyby of Earth due to its plutonium-powered engine. Some media treated it like a real threat. The actual result? A successful maneuver and 0 explosions. 84. When swine flu vaccines rolled out, certain anchors speculated about secret ingredients and microchips. Some even suggested it was part of a population control agenda. The real conspiracy? Just a regular shot with regular side effects. 85. In the 2000s, there were repeated reports that Wi-Fi signals were cooking our brains. Talk shows featured guests warning about radiation and invisible health hazards. Decades later, we're all still here, streaming videos and ignoring those early doomsday predictions. 86. In 2011, media hysteria exploded around bath salts, a synthetic drug blamed for turning users into face-eating zombies. One horrific case in Florida sparked national headlines, but toxicology later revealed the attacker hadn't even taken bath salts. The myth, however, spread like wildfire. 87. When furries, people who dress as anthropomorphic animals, gained attention online, news outlets often painted them as part of a secretive and dangerous subculture. Segments focused on fetishized extremes while ignoring that most furries were just fans of cartoons and costumes. 88. In 2018, the Banana Sprite Challenge got the spotlight as a dangerous new viral trend. News reports warned it could cause vomiting, stomach rupture, or worse. But the challenge wasn't exactly sweeping the nation. It was just a few TikTok teens with strong gag reflexes. 89. When drones became consumer-friendly, media stories warned of everything from peeping toms in the sky to terrorist drone swarms. Reality? Most drone users were filming their dogs at the park or crashing into trees during family barbecues. 90. The haunted eBay listings craze in the early 2000s had news anchors breathlessly reading descriptions of possessed dolls and cursed paintings. While fun to watch, some viewers genuinely believed evil spirits were being shipped with USPS priority mail. 91. When vaping became mainstream, headlines called it the next crack epidemic. Every illness was linked to e-cigarettes, even before investigations. Turns out, a specific batch of black market cartridges was to blame. But the general panic stuck. 92. In 2019, the Storm Area 51 Facebook event was treated like a national security threat by some outlets. Pundits warned of mass arrests, alien exposure, and chaos. What actually happened? A few people in alien costumes doing the Naruto run for the memes. 93. When the CERN particle collider was turned on in 2008, headlines warned it could create a black hole and swallow the Earth. The science said otherwise, but a few loud voices got a lot of airtime. Spoiler alert, the planet's still here, and we got some cool physics out of it. 94. Reports of exploding cell phones in the mid-2010s had people checking their pockets every few minutes. While a few rare models did overheat, the media made it sound like any phone might go boom if you looked at it funny while charging. 95. The rise of ASMR videos led some outlets to label it brain porn, with others suggesting it might be a gateway to adult content addiction. In truth, it was just millions of people watching whispering YouTubers to fall asleep at night. 96. In 2007, the game addiction epidemic dominated news cycles. Teenagers playing World of Warcraft were portrayed as lost causes, unable to function in society. Later research showed most gamers balanced their lives just fine, but panic sells. 97. When crop circles hit mainstream media in the 90s, some stations suggested they were alien messages. Entire specials were dedicated to geometric decoding. The twist? Most were made by artists with ropes and wooden boards, and some even gave live demonstrations. 98. The killer microwave myth resurfaced in the 2000s, with some reports claiming standing near a microwave could fry your brain or sterilize you. Most forgot that microwaves are specifically shielded and engineered not to leak. You were never in danger, except maybe from that leftover meatloaf. 99. In the early days of YouTube, mainstream media painted it as a lawless wasteland filled with violence, predators, and brain-rotting nonsense. Ironically, many of those same networks now run their own channels on the platform they once warned would destroy civilization. 100. The Zoom bombing craze of 2020 led to claims that video calls were being hijacked by hackers at scale. Media outlets acted like any digital meeting was an open door to chaos. In reality, it was mostly pranksters, and people forgetting to use passwords. 101. And finally, let's talk about media coverage of the media itself. Every few years, there's a new wave of stories blaming the news for public fear, misinformation, or outrage culture, often aired by those very same outlets. It's a loop of irony, hype, and ad revenue, and somehow it always works. So after 101 overblown headlines, what's clear? Fear gets views, facts get buried, and next week's panic? Already loading. Tell us in the comments, what's the dumbest media frenzy you remember? And if you liked this video, no need to freak out. Just hit that like button and we're good.